and welcome to another tantalising glimpse at Landmark. And in this week we have quite a lot of patch notes to get through, but first off is obvious. They've introduced oceans. So this is Water Phase 1, and all of the islands, they've seemed to have changed the name of continents to islands, which makes perfect sense given that they're not actually that big. So, islands, they're all now surrounded by water, which is great. Looks very pretty, I'm sure you'll agree. Let's zoom around. There are little islands, as you see. I managed to get to one. That's about it, unfortunately. There's oceans, and they're very pretty, but you can't do anything with them. And by anything I mean you can't swim. We're all super buoyant. We can't go under the water. We can't use the water to do anything. Can't craft with it. So it's just phase 1. It's just, you know, we're expecting more to come in the future. Couple of things. Yes, let's just show you the island. There we go. Now completely surrounded by water. There are, obviously, as you see, little inlets where it's been low, and also islands which people will probably put claims on at some point. Can't blame them either. Other things, right? We've already done the you can't swim or do anything with it. If you had a claim at the edges of the island that you're on, it's entirely possible that it is now underwater. If it is underwater, then there's no way to get to it other than by using a portal shard, which could be quite cool or not, depending on your point of view and the type of claim you had. You know, the type of claim, the type of build you had. Yeah, if you try to select it, so let's just try to select it as a building material. Nothing, I can't do anything. You attempted to select a material that isn't available for building. Please use bug and let us know so we can fix it. Well, yeah. Honestly, this isn't a bug. It's intended. We can't build with this stuff. There was an exploit that one of the developers came up with, which allowed structures to be painted with a water texture, which looked amazing. But that looks like it was a developer-only thing, and we can't do it. So, massive shame there. However, I think you'll agree. Phase 1, it's looking pretty good. Then, according to the blueprint, we're not going to see inland water or streams or dynamic water or water we can build with until roughly July. That may come forward, it may go backwards, but that's where it is at the moment. Okay, now we're going to move around a bit to show you the other changes. So, the first of these changes is to the spires. The spires themselves haven't changed, but what has changed is that the crafting stations here are completely different. You used to have a basic forge there and a basic workshop. Neither of which, well, they were good enough to sort of set you up just at the beginning, just about, but they weren't actually particularly useful, and quite often what people would do is use friendly claims and use the workshops in those claims, which were capable of doing a lot more. Now what we have is a stone forge, which is the same as everybody else has. We have a tinkerer's workshop, again same. They've also added an alchemy table and an outfitter's table, which is really useful. It means that all 4 basic crafting stations are now at the portal. It makes the spires makes the spires much more useful for people just starting out who maybe haven't built a claim yet. So yeah, superb change. Really happy about that. Doesn't affect me, probably wouldn't affect anybody who's been playing for a while, but will be really handy for new players. So brilliant. Oh yes, the Tinkerer's Workshop. It has a new model. Look at that. The other one looked like a sawmill, if you'll recall. This new one has a new model. It's very steampunky. I have no objections to that at all. It won't fit in at all builds, so I mean, you know, that's a downside. But you know, it fits well enough in mine. And obviously, if you have a non-cosmetic station, then that'd be great. It won't make any difference, essentially. Right. Next off, well, I was going to cut, but it's not very far to run to the cottage. So, oh, and I can show you something on the way. I say something. What I have been building this week is a giant floating island or two. You can just see it rendering in now. We can look at that in slightly more detail later on. But there they are. I'm really quite pleased with how they turned out. I'm very pleased with how the cottage on one of them turned out, but again, more of that later. So, where are we going? Oh, I've had a texture swap bug. That's annoying. How badly has it affected the cottage? Every now and then there is a bug that swaps textures. So, yep, I now have a stone floor instead of a wooden floor. Right, I'm gonna log out and log back in. See you in a bit. There we go. That's better. All textures back where they should be. It's a fairly common bug, but and quite often I don't bother with it, but it can be a pain. Anyway, what are we looking at? Let's close the door. Right, let's go through the changes. I've already mentioned the Tinkerer's Workshop changing skin. So, Stoneforge. The Stoneforge can now be used to upgrade items. So, if you recall previously, I showed you in a previous video, you needed a tech forge to upgrade the items. Now you can do it at a Stoneforge, which means that players just starting out can upgrade their lower level tools, which is great. But that makes the tech forge redundant, you will say. No, it doesn't, because the tech forge now produces higher quality items than the Stoneforge. So really, for anyone who's got to the level of having a tech forge, don't be using your Stoneforge for anything anymore. If you're building anything, let's have a look. So picks, axes or sickles or pulverizers, build them all at the tech forge, because they will have a better chance of coming out with good results on the RNG. So you'll get better damage or what have you. They'll still all be green, obviously, but yeah, you might get extra benefits through using the tech forge rather than the Stoneforge. The sifter, there we go. The sifter can now sift stone as well as dirt and sand. But instead of what you had before was you would aim to create either or gems or relics. Now what it does is it just sort of, you sift dirt or sand or stone, and you'll get a bag that contains ore, gems, redstone or relic fragments, which is great. I think you get quite a few relic fragments actually. I have a feeling that's been buffed a bit, which again, great. The higher the level of the sifter, obviously the higher tier of materials you stand a chance of getting. This is the Masterwork sifter. It's the best sifter you can get at the moment in the game, and this will get me tier 1 to 6. So what it does is it will give you materials that are one level higher than the sifter you're using, which is kind of handy. So the Roughwork sifter, which is the first one you get, is crafted with tier 2 resources, will now get you tier 3 resources. The Tradesman sifter is the middle one. You craft with tier 3 resources, will give you tier 4 resources. And the Masterwork sifter, this one, is crafted with tier 5 resources, and will give you up to tier 6 resources. It used not to be possible to create the Masterwork sifter, but they've changed that, so now it is, which is brilliant. Next one, Tinker's Workshop. Yes. So if you remember, the Tinker's Workshop used to have a model similar to this one, only sort of with wood instead of the pretend castle. But it was felt that was a bit confusing, so they've gone for this totally not confusing machine here. I like it. I really like the model. I love the animations in it. What's not to love, huh? So yeah, there's that. The other thing that has changed is that it now has recipe sorting for props. So if we go there, it starts out as with chests first. So we've got the rustic stone vault, the ornate small chest, and the simple large chest, which are the 3 chests that are available in game. And then it goes on to non-interactive props, so the flag and new ones, which I'll go and show you later. Non-interactive props, then animated props, so that's further down here. Doo-ba-doo. Lot. Wow. Okay, starting probably with the mailbox, because that does stuff when you click on it, and then the doors and candle and that's it. Gosh, mailbox and doors are the ones you can act with, and then finally light sources, starting with candle and going through the braziers all the way up to the light orbs. So that's that. Recipe costs for all tools have been reduced slightly. Early tier tools get a larger cost reduction, so your copper pick will be a lot cheaper to make than it was. The later tier tools, your mithril pick, has still had a reduction in it, but it won't be as significant as the lower tier ones. This is really so that it becomes easier for us to create multiple picks till we get the right one that we want to upgrade. I'm afraid I didn't take a note of what it took to make the basic tools, to make the tools before, so I can't say how much difference there is for each one now. But I'm sure you could look it up if you were interested. Frankly, I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference, because it's just stuff that you gather. Stone tools have been removed from the basic forge, which is no surprise because the basic forge doesn't exist anymore, but you can retrieve them from the resupply chest, which is the it looks like an ornate chest, and it's at the spires, so apparently you can get them from there, if in the unlikely event that you would ever want stone tools. Can't imagine why you would, but oh, the silver sickle, yes. I need to go out and show you this. So actually I'll cut to save useless waffling. Back in a bit. Right, there we go. And now the sickle now has a cone-shaped reticle, and you need to get the plant that you're hoping to harvest inside the reticle, and then left click to get it. I strongly suspect this is a precursor to the combat system that's coming in. I suspect it will have it will be using reticles. Right, let's put that away. Now we've got new. Let's see, I think that's done on tools. Yes. I'm going to nip forward now to resources. I'll go back to crafted items in a bit. New resources. Most significant is this stuff here, which is ancient earth, and if you dig that, you stand a chance of getting all sorts of good things. I'll just carry on digging and reading. It's difficult to mine and talk all at the same time. I'm not great at multitasking. Right, so the ancient earth actually gives different resources based on where you are. So if you're on tier 1, these veins can contain talisman fragments. If you're on tier 2, then they can contain talisman fragments and runestone fragments. Talisman fragments are the green ones, runestones are the blue ones, and tier 3 islands and higher, they can have the same stuff, but also a chance for artifact fragments to drop, which you need for legendary items. So that's great. Which brings me neatly on to upgrading materials. The differences between restored talismans and restored idols, the developers didn't feel was significant enough to warrant keeping both of them, and I can see why. So idol fragments, that's the lowest tier ones, won't drop from any sources at all. Relics have been changed to relic fragments, and you now need several fragments to make a single restored relic. Before you needed a relic and other materials. Now, however, you no longer need the additional components. You don't need elemental iron or whatever it was you were using, and you don't need gems. You just need a bunch of restored relics. The drop rate of relic fragments from dirt, sand and stone has also been increased, and sifted bags can now drop several relics up to 6 per bag instead of 1 or very rarely 2 relics per bag. So that's great. It's great that that we don't need gemstones or elemental resources anymore, because they were a bit of a pain to harvest. Well, they were time consuming to harvest. It's much I prefer this. I haven't tested it out yet, so I don't know for sure, but this strikes me as a better option. Veins of Ancient Earth I've shown you, and also the frequency of gem nodes has increased, so you can now get gems much easier than you could in the past. Of course, I'm in old growth forest where you can't really see very much. Well, there you go, you've got some amethyst and what looks to be aquamarine. Excuse me. Some amethyst and some aquamarine there, which, yeah, the frequency has been increased. what can I say? So they used to be quite rare. They're now not at all rare. They're all over the place. I suspect this is in preparation for caves where resources will actually be slightly harder to find because they won't be sort of obviously on the surface. So although there are ways of finding resources underground, or there will be, I can see why they would increase the number of nodes. In addition to this, nodes that contain common gems or metals, so iron and aquamarine, for example, now have the gem at the beginning of the vein and the end of the vein. So if I were to chop into this aquamarine here, it's not going to do it now. Let's see, are you? Got any iron for me? No. Oh yes, there we go, there's iron. So yeah, and if I follow this down, which I won't actually, there will be more aquamarine at the end. So that's that. Now let's go on to crafted items. And as if by magic, here we are in the cottage. Right, a few new crafted items have been added, all of which are on top of this dresser. The dresser itself is new. It is the dresser, incidentally, is made out of macrovoxels almost entirely, with some iron mugs as handles. Right, that being said, let's go through the different shells that have been created. So here we have a conch shell. Then we have here a yellow speckled shell. Let's see if I can get closer. There we go. A yellow speckled shell. Over here we have a red speckled shell. Here an open speckled shell. And here, holding up the candles, starfish. So yeah, just little cosmetic stuff. I'm sure that people will find immensely creative things to do with these. One thing I've noticed is that they don't actually scale up particularly hugely, which is kind of a shame, because I could see sort of somebody wanting to build something inside one of the shells, but that's not possible. They just don't scale up. The conch shell, I think, goes to the largest, and actually I can show you exactly how big that goes. So let's adjust it, pull back a bit. Actually, if we move it out into the room, and then down a bit. Right, now let's go here, and you'll see it goes fairly large, but not by any means massive. I think, yep, that's as big as it gets. So big, certainly big, but not anything you could actually build in. However, I'm sure, as I say, that some enterprising person will find an amazing way to use these in their builds. Let's put it back onto the dresser. That's it for new props this week, but hey, they're quite nice and pretty. Right, nearly at the end. We've got some changes to gameplay. Apparently we can now group with people across multiple worlds, so if I were to shift to another server, I would retain my group, whereas before it would drop. I've heard that that's slightly unreliable currently, but it may have been fixed or may going to be fixed, so that's the intent. Now if you receive a tell, if you hit R, it will reply to that person, which is great. Menu changes. We've got a new icon there. That's the new spotlight for the showcase. Other than that, it's unchanged. just call it up. That's where you buy the in-game stuff and also where you browse other people's builds. So great stuff. Next is your templates, your inventory, the map, and then this last one is new, and that's the help menu. Now at the moment what that does is it takes you to a getting started page which contains sort of instructional videos and stuff. Possibly it doesn't contain videos, no, but it's just sort of really basic sort of stuff. They're intending to improve that later on, but obviously it's just a start, and it's great. It's great to see them, you know, putting things in to help newer players. Finally, building. Right, this is a change that has been met with almost universal negativity, I think, from from most of the player base, and that is there's a modal change when you're placing something. So let's pick you up. Can I pick you up? Yes. So let's adjust that. Oh no, it's not going to work with this. Oh yes, it will. I think. Right, so you move it about as normal. Now, in order to change, if we ignore this, this sort of thing works for cutting and pasting and various other things outside of tweak mode, which this is tweak mode. Now previously you would shift tab to move between these three options for manipulating your items. Now no, it doesn't work on this. Let's see, what can what have I got? Well, let's just plonk something down. Let's lift you up, place you, copy it. Actually that's handy, that's brought me onto another thing. They've increased the size of the handles around selected areas, so it's now much easier to grab the flat faces, which is really handy. It used to be a nightmare before. It's now eminently possible, so that's great. So let's copy that, go out, and now if we paste it, here we go. Right. So we've got the usual thing, but whereas before I would have to hit Shift and Tab in order to go to rotate, now there's an entirely different key. Now they say, if you see at the bottom of the screen here, actually let's escape out of that and indeed delete that. Whoops. Right. They say it's the the name of it's gone completely out of my head. No, can't remember the name of it. Squiggly line. I'm sure you'll remind me in the comments. It's not on all keyboards by any means. I can only speak for UK and Northern European keyboards. On a UK keyboard, it's the apostrophe and @ symbol that changes the mode of transformation, and on German style keyboards it's O umlaut, which swaps the transforms. That's one of the significant problems of doing this, because international keyboards have very different layouts between each other, but things like Shift and Tab are in the same place. So it's nice and easy. If you want a common keystroke, that's a good one to go for. Unfortunately, they had to change it, or they felt they had to change it, because they are launching the game on Steam, and apparently Steam has a Shift Tab key binding already, and they didn't want that to clash. So, camera change, as you saw at the beginning of the of this video, the view distance on the cameras, the distance at which a candle you can zoom out again, has been drastically increased. This is great, but alas, it's not going to be permanent. They're intending to put it in for any time that you're going to be placing a template or pasting a large selection, but just for wobbling around, you will no longer be able to go out quite as far as this, which is a shame, because in some ways this is really good. It's certainly good for, I would imagine, machinima and certainly screenshots. But hey, there you go. So zooming in, the other thing that's changed is that, and actually what I'll do is I'll head up there just to show you this other new feature, the final new feature. Right, so if we go over here, the drop down has changed, and you now have a tick box with claim boundaries. So if we hit that, you now see a nice simple box around your claim, which is super useful. Before it was very blue and had huge golden scroll work at the sides, and now it's much more obvious. Well, it's much cleaner, which is great. It's much more useful. You can see what's going on better. So this is a great change. If you're feeling nostalgic, you can get you can go to the map, and there you go. You've got the old style right there, just if you need a quick fix. Frankly, I prefer this new one, but it absolutely works on the map, so I hope they keep that. And that's it, I think, for the patch notes for this week. So I'll just give you a quick tour around my new build here, this new cottage. This is still kind of a work in progress, although I've finished pretty much. I think I'm done on the island on which you see me stand. Yesterday I added the well, and there's a bridge to be made, and also some extra stuff to do with the well. The well and the island that it sits on I made completely by hand. This island I made partially by hand and partially using prop rocks. So sort of creating a prop in the Tinker's Forge and then making it ludicrously large, which worked out pretty well, I think. Right, quick tour. This is the outside. It's not a great deal to see here on the Macrovoxel's tiles and wood. Wow. One thing that I did with this cottage that I didn't do with the other cottage, with the main cottage, which is my first build, which is something that I really regret, and post-wipe I will address with the main cottage, is that the walls on this are 3 voxels thick, and that lets me do an awful lot of things. Gives me freedom to do all sorts of stuff that I can't do with a single or even double voxel wall. So gold inlays, the new bookshelf props, and here I decided to subvert one of the bookshelves, well, two of the bookshelves actually, there's another one over there, by sinking it right down and bunging a cushion on top of it. So it makes a little bench that you can sit on and read a book, and that fits in with the style of the other two. Little table here is very prop heavy in here, but I'm really pleased with the way this island has turned out. One thing that caused me no end of frustration was this thing here, this beast. As I'm sure you can imagine, this caused me quite a bit of grief to make, but I think it's turned out well. I'm pleased with the effect. And that I think brings us to a bit of a close. So until next week, I shall say goodbye. And if you have any comments or questions, do please leave them in the section below. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a like. It helps immensely in making this video more visible to other people doing a search on Landmark. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike, and ideally leave a comment why you didn't like it. Suggestions, anything, questions about how I made anything, let me know and I'll try and answer them. Okay, so until next time, goodbye.